Okay, we are going to look more at the preterite in Spanish. The preterite, again, is a form of the past tense, talking about things that you did, like I ate a sandwich, I got a good grade, I played basketball, for example. In this video, I'm going to talk about what I like to call car-gar-zar verbs. These are verbs that end in car, gar, or zar. And the reasons that we're going to look at these in the preterite is because they have one thing about them that's just a little bit off as compared to a regular AR verb in Spanish, in the preterite. So first I'm going to give you the verb hablar, which is a regular AR verb in the preterite. Its conjugations are as follows. Yo hablé, tú hablaste, él, ella, usted habló, nosotros hablamos, vosotros hablasteis, ellos, ellas, ustedes hablaron. Now we're going to look at the verb first, sacar. Sacar is the car verb, and there's just one thing that's off about it. Everything else follows the regular AR pattern with hablar. The verb sacar in the yo form in the preterite, first you might think it would be conjugated like this, S-A-C with the accent mark over E. The problem with that is if you wrote that word down, it would be pronounced sase, and that doesn't keep the k sound that you have in sakar. So to do that, what you have to do is change that C to a QU. So your yo form of sakar in the preterite would be sake. A couple other verbs that follow that same pattern are buscar, practicar, and tocar. So the yo form of buscar would be busque. Why don't you think really quick, what would be the yo form of practicar? If you thought practique, you are correct. And what would be the yo form of tocar? Toque is correct. So anytime you see yourself writing one of these car-gar-zar verbs down in the preterite in a yo form, you got to try and think to yourself, there's a change here. What is the change? If you were to pronounce it like you wrote it, and you wrote it like T-O-C-E with the accent mark over it, think about how words are pronounced in Spanish. That'd be tose. That'd be wrong. So you got to change that C to a Q-U. This will also come in handy later on when you learn commands and something called the subjunctive also. With the gar verbs, the example I'll give you is jugar. Jugar in the yo form, if you conjugated it like you would hablar, it would be J-U-G with an accent mark over the E. And that would be pronounced juge. And obviously that's not maintaining the G sound that you have in jugar. So what you have to do is stick a U in there. So the yo form of jugar is jugue, jugue. The rest of them just follow the regular AR verb pattern. A couple other verbs like that are llegar and pagar. Why don't you tell me really quick, what's the yo form of llegar in the preterite? It would be llegué. And then the yo form of pagar would be pagué. So for the yo form preterite of gar, G-A-R verbs, you're going to stick that U in there to maintain the G sound. Now with the zar verbs, the Z-A-R verbs, what's going to happen is there's going to be another change to it. There isn't really a good explanation why this one changes because the pronunciation would be the same whether or not I changed it, but there is the change. So almorzar means to eat lunch. The yo form, if you wouldn't change anything, would be would end in a Z, E accent mark over it, which in Spanish would be pronounced almorcé. But for whatever reason, they changed the Z to a C, which would still be pronounced the same, but the change is there, so you have to know it. So the yo form would be almorcé with a C-E at the end of it, accent mark over the E. A couple of the verbs that follow this pattern are comenzar, empezar, casar, any verb that ends in a ZAR. Why don't you think really quick, what's the yo form of comenzar? Comencé. Empezar would be empecé. And casar would be casé. So these car-gar-zar verbs, they have this change just in the yo form in the preterite. The rest of the verb, the tú, él, usted, nosotros, vosotros, ellos, ellas, ustedes forms of the verb are just like the verb hablar in the preterite. There's nothing different as far as the endings go. It's just the yo form of the car-gar-zar verbs have those changes. The car, the C changes to a QU in the yo form. The gar, you add the U in there after the G to maintain the G sound. And then the ZAR ones, you change that Z to a C. And that's it. So this just takes a little time of studying, and make sure you practice it in the homework in your class, and you'll get it down. And this does come in handy because when you start learning commands and the subjunctive, the same types of changes happen there as well. So if you learn it now, when the time comes for the commands, that will be that much easier. Let me know if you have any questions.